All right. Well, hey there, everyone. We are back. Well, I am back for the Sky Power Rankings. S and I just recorded Abyssal last night, and now we've got a new host of people here for Sky. So if they want to introduce themselves.
Hello, I am Tom. I won last season. Some veterans probably remember me as the person who kept running Lovely Kiss Delta Lopunny.
And I'm Seb. Obviously the best admin and the official Sky admin, as well as a Sky player.
Personally, I think Blinn should just make you a third co-commissioner.
True. No, I'm fine with saying where I am.
Just have like 6 co-commissioners, just abolish admins. Alright, anyway, before we get too sidetracked, shall we begin?
Well, obviously, first we can say a disclaimer. Obviously, it should be known, but there's just a fun opinion. It's not meant to be taken seriously. If we poke fun, it's all meant in good fun. Don't take it too seriously.
Yes.
And
this is just entertainment.
Also, the teams are meant to be judged in a vacuum rather than within the context of the code. So just because we don't think a team looks like it might work doesn't mean it won't work for you if you can pilot it correctly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I feel PRs are more often wrong than right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's part of the fun of it. Is you get to look back at the end of the season and realize the person who got placed in first ended up not making playoffs, and the person who made 14th ended up in the top 5 or something like that.
Yeah, and that's obviously if we don't like the team, maybe it works for someone else, or maybe the player's just really that good.
Yeah, like a classic example of this is my GPL season that I made finals. I was dead last in the power rankings.
Oh yeah.
For Hearthstone.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It was something. Alright, but yes. With the disclaimers out of the way, let's get started. Alright, so first thing we got is Toxie.
And we're going in draft order, right?
Yeah, I guess that's the other thing we should explain is this isn't in. We're not going to be presenting these in the order that we think they are. We're actually going to. I will flip to the tier maker. We will be placing them as we go. So you see, you got everybody's logos here. We'll put them on the tier list as you go. And for comedy purposes, going to hell is demoting to infernal, and then ascending to heaven is promoting to perfection.
Ah. Is the Cinderace and
yeah, there are multiple teams.
I assume those are logos,
so I just
teams.
threw some stuff in there. So this is Dashing,
fair.
Or this is Shrimp, and then this is Hand Clays.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Doctor.
Straight off the bat, you obviously have the mandatory first round pick Delta Mime.
Yep.
So that's what you expect, but I mean it's first pick for a reason.
Yeah.
And I also have a lot of physical offense to go along. Also Melm, Quack, and Land OT. I don't think there's a physical wall that can stand up to those 4.
No.
So that's really nice.
If there is, it's something hyper specific.
Actually, Regirock kind of can.
Okay, but Delta Regirock
but that's Delta Regirock.
And obviously it can't take like Melm dip into like a Mime play rough.
And also, even for that specific matchup, there's a bundle and there's a...
Yeah. That's besides the point.
Yeah.
So, I think I agree on that. I mean, you can see S's comments in the top right because they aren't here. Yes, this team has a lot of offense.
Yep.
I think it's, for the most part, pretty good offense. Although I do have some opinions, that's for sure. I don't really get what the duck is doing here, to be honest. I know it has a lot of snowball potential, but I feel like this is a team that really relies more on like immediate breaking than like setup sweeping. and it doesn't really have as many things to facilitate the setup sweep. There's a few good things. There's like the Lander's U-turn, there's the Delta Mime U-turn, the bundle. You have a good lot of pivoting options, which is pretty solid. The Quaquaval can definitely work just because I've seen that thing 6-0 people on its own, but it feels a little out of place to me on this team.
You don't
It-
need to set up with Quack. You just click Aqua Step.
That's true. It can just get a kill with Aqua Step and then get going.
You can
Yeah,
easily
and
just play game cleaner.
I mean, top 4 is also all 3 of the top 4 are like immediate breakers.
Yeah.
Or top 3, I mean, top 3. Top 3.
Yeah, top
So like
top 4, I think, is coming every game. I think that's pretty undeniable.
Yeah.
I think the only real notes that I have, to be honest, is because like this feels like the team that at first glance you'd be like, oh, there's probably not a lot of defensive integrity, but like even an offensive Landorus set like a Scarf Landorus can still provide a decent amount of utility defensively. And Hydrapple is actually, I think, much better than people give it credit for a lot of the time.
Yeah, I like it. The big, I mean, it's also nice to like have just a fat region pivot that can still
Absolutely.
put in like some offensive work. The main problem I see with it is like it's a grass type that loses to most waters because it's so slow, and obviously the 4 times ice weakness.
The ice beam is going to be really big.
Yeah,
and also on the stuff I do like, I think Vikavolt and Delphox are 2 great Terra caps, and like maybe one of the better pairings. But like Vikavolt it can be good defensively with like Levitate for Terra, or just like all pure offense. And Delphox is also like a great offensive Terra with like Naziplot and like Terra Grass, Terra Fairy, even like Terra Fighting.
Yeah,
Flame Charger,
Yeah, Double Dance Delphox is surprisingly effective, like, because just the 2 stabs are enough to muscle through quite a bit if you gotta plop them off.
Or like Fair and Fire Stab if you're Terra Fairy.
Yeah, Terra Blast in general is just such a valuable thing to have on it. It's got a decent enough speed tier.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I think is worth mentioning, is there are a few
speed gaps?
There are a couple weird gaps in the speed tiers, but I don't think they're
disastrous.
horribly important, to be honest.
Like
you have Hydrapple to Quaquaval effectively, because that Lombre is not ever coming to a single game. I'm fairly confident.
But just before we have to address it, the bottom 2, I'm wondering if they're picked just to not be cringe. But honestly, that's fair. I think Camerupt can do stuff. Lombre, I don't know. Camerupt can like actually do stuff barely, but it can.
Yeah,
Lombre is like an Eviolite mon that doesn't really have the stats to use the Eviolite, and it doesn't. I think I agree on the Lombre, because I feel like if you wanted an actually good Magic Bounce low tier, you would have gone for Hatchram, which is also still a Psychic type. Camerupt, I do think, is actually legitimately kind of underrated, though. It's a really good.
Camerupt's decent.
Well, okay, it's not really good. That's a Camerupt, but it's solid enough. It can set toxic spikes. It can absorb them in a pinch.
It has pretty good coverage as well.
Yeah, it's a good shitmon. It's a pretty solid shitmon. I've considered drafting it a couple of times.
Plays so fast that I don't actually think the T spikes are going to matter that much, but
That's fair. I think realistically, essentially every game for this team is going to boil down to like top 4, and then one of Hydrapple or Quaquaval, and then one of the Terra options, more often than not.
Yeah.
Like
one negative I see is the hazard game for like an HO team is kind of weak. Like you have webs, which is a nice option, but you don't need webs because like your offense is generally pretty fast. And then you like Lando being your only rocker when Lando wants to do a lot of other stuff. It's not ideal, but it's not the word. Like, but still, something like a spiker to like help Mime break some of its checks would be nice.
And it'd also be nice for Quack too, because like
yeah, that's fair. I think in fairness, hazards are like actually good again in Gen 9. Like I feel like hazards weren't bad in Gen 8, but they were definitely the worst they've probably ever been. But Now Gen
Really
9, I feel
meta.
like a lot of people are kind of just, they're not running boots on 4 Pokemon every week, like we would see a lot in Gen 8.
Yeah.
I do agree that I think you could easily replace the Lombre with like a low tier Delta Spiker. There's a lot of low tier Deltas that can learn spikes. Sadly, the main one that comes to mind is Delta Frogadier, which I believe is already taken.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you could get a low tier Spiker, I think that would do quite a bit.
We can quickly move on to the next page.
Yeah.
Oh,
we can
wait,
talk
before
about
we
it.
do-
I mean, I don't think there's actually anything particularly here.
The one thing I mean, it's an A-show team, so like the defensive structure isn't that important.
Right.
But the main thing I see that could cause issues are offensive waters. Like, you technically have 4 assists, but most of them lose to offensive water. Like, Bundle and Lombre doesn't count. Hydrapple loses to most waters just with an ice move.
Yeah.
And then Quackable can be decently bulky with like Roost and Spin, but it still doesn't beat most offensive waters. Like,
It also
something like,
can't take Scald. It can't
Yeah.
resist Scald
Oh, yeah.
at all. That's
Like-
I think the one thing that's like really notable is like this team is really bad in the Scald. And
Yeah.
now you can run Covert Cloak, but you don't want to put a Covert Cloak on a Coquavel or a Malware
Yeah.
or something like that.
like
Yeah.
your
Bundle-
best bet might be like, I mean, Hydrapple is a great Scald switching, but obviously not a good Ice Beam one. But like,
Yeah.
you might have to like pivot Hydrapple into a Scald and then go to like a Melm on an Ice Beam.
Yeah. I think the main
Potentially, yeah.
answer to the bulky waters is probably going to be the Vigavolt.
True.
Because like with
I mean,
Terra
bulky waters are
and-
fine. I think it's the offensive waters that.
Yeah,
That's
even
the
offensive
issue.
waters though, I think that's their best way of like immediately removing them. Like you have
That's
they have
fair.
ways of getting it in relatively safely with U-turn. Its special attack is high enough that it can run boots and still output quite a bit of damage. Like I think the Vigavolt
Yeah.
is one for that. But the issue then becomes that it's putting a lot of pressure on the Terra cap,
Mhm.
which it does usually want to Terra out of the bug typing, I feel, which kind of puts some pressure on Delphox. But I do think it's overall workable. I think if this team
Oh, yeah.
is piloted well enough, that can absolutely be worked around.
And it also helps that you also have like 2 of the best offensive waters.
Yeah.
This team would hate
Yeah.
facing Bundle, but you have Bundle, so you don't care. And this
I
team
mean,
would not
thank
like
God.
facing Quackable, but you have
Yeah.
it, so you don't care.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, as you can see with the little comment I left, for the most part, I think this team is fine in the normal types. Melmetal is like Melmetal might be the only resist, but it's also one of the best normal resists in the game. But
Yeah.
if you get a strong opposing Boomer spammer like a Terra Noivern, especially one that has like a Heat Wave or something in the back, then this team is kind of gonna get fucked. I'm gonna be right. I'm gonna be real. It's
Yeah.
like
I
hyper
also-
specific, and it might.
I
not
also
be
would
cut
like to
off,
say-
but-
Ghost resists as well. There aren't that many good Ghost types, but
Yeah.
for the ones that are like, you don't like taking like Poltergeists or Shadow Balls. Like, you
Yeah.
have decent like neutral options. Like Lando can take some of the physical ones. Hydrapple can like, kind of take the physical, but still, you don't like Mime as your only resist. But it's
Yeah.
not the end of the world.
Does Mime retain the absurdly high special defense, or is that only a trait on
No.
Magician? Okay.
It's only like
Magician has higher Spidef than Mime does.
It still has a lot of HP, but you just don't want Mime taking hits in general.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the worst with filter.
Yeah, no, it's
But yeah, we should move on. We
I was
don't
gonna say,
want this
we're
to
like
turn
10
to-
minutes in on just this. We kind of need to.
We need to-
yeah,
yeah.
a bit.
let's get
All
going.
right. Where are we putting Toxie's team?
Oh,
I think I want to put it in could make playoffs personally.
yeah, I like it.
think
Like, it's a
that's-
solid team with
Solid,
some
yeah.
holes, but it could definitely work.
it's a team
go.
that I think I can see it being exploitable in certain ways, but also just the offense on its own is so potent that this is a team that can absolutely end a game in less than 15 turns. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moved on. All right. Now we have Groot.
yeah, this is an interesting one because it's such a bizarre amalgamation of like. I made a comment of there's exactly four attackers and also a Galvantula, which admittedly 3 attackers is usually fine, I think, but I think the selection of attackers here is interesting.
Yeah.
Uh,
unless you run some specific sets, all of your offensive mons kind of rely on setup. I know in some matchups like just Specs Torn, Scarf Ape, Choiceband Boulder can work, but they still usually prefer like setup sets. So you could struggle with like the initial damage output.
Mhm.
But if you do manage to set up, then you have 4 extremely scary setup mons. So it's like if they manage to stop the setup, then you might be in trouble. But once you set up, you're extremely scary.
Yeah.
I think that is kind of underestimating the Annihilate a little bit, because I don't think Annihilate necessarily needs a setup set, although Bulk Up is obviously the most popular variant, but like a Choice Scarf Annihilate is always really good. However, it does
that's
still,
also kind of not a breaker.
Yeah, no, it relies.
Mostly.
If it wants to break, it needs to rack up Rage Fist, and just because of the generally higher power level, racking up Rage Fist is significantly harder in Insurgents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still not
And
bad.
it's not gonna be the easiest. I do agree. Like if the setup gets going, then this team is incredible, or not incredible, but incredibly powerful. However, I do have one major thing that I want to bring up. This team's kind of really, really, really bad into taunt. Like it's really bad into taunt.
Yeah.
Because
A
taunt
lot of
stops
it's
the setup that it
stupid
needs to
taunt.
rely on. It stops Ferrothorn from doing almost anything aside from a reasonably powerful body press. Like probably the
Or
one
more
that's
gyro
least,
Or gyro, yeah.
probably the one that's least scared of getting taunted. Ironically enough, is I think actually Mega Milo or Iron Boulder, because like Milo's raw bulk, as long as it's healthy enough, it can still just flip turn out most of the time to get rid of the status. But
Yeah. But I also, I mean, it's like my comment. It's pretty funny that like the top 3 are both a Pharaoh Grass Core and a Fair Dragon Steel Core.
Yeah.
And obviously, like Milo and Pharaoh both punishing, like obviously the different forms of like all attacks between each other is a nice combo.
it is a very good combo. I mean, I feel like
definitely like a really good defensive core for like all your setup mons to fall back on.
I think it's a really interesting top 3 because like it's almost never, I feel like, what you see drafted top 3 in Insurgents as a format, and I think it can really work. It does have a couple of problems. Mainly, there's a couple of types that none of them resist. Probably the most notable being ground. Like, this team in general is actually kind of terrible in ground types. It can kill them. It can absolutely kill them. Milo can kill them. Ferrothorn can kill them. But you only have 2 immunities.
Yeah. And they're both pretty frail.
And they're both Terra. Well, one of them is a Levitate mon, so that's actually not a thing. But aside from that, the neutral bulk really doesn't like taking earthquakes.
Yeah.
And also both fall to any form of other attack, especially Stone Edge, which most earthquake mons have.
Yeah.
Like even Terra Cryo doesn't take like physical hits well.
Yeah, I feel like
it does not.
I feel like for things like Garchomp or like opposing Landorus, this team is going to be relying on that Tangela a lot more than it wants to be.
Yeah. I feel like the bottom 5 are like, I mean, they're mostly decent mons, so I don't hate it, but I also like don't love it.
Yeah.
This is a team of 6.
Yeah.
This is a team of 6.
It doesn't feel like the low tiers are adding a ton here.
I don't.
It almost feels like just like a check mark of like
I was about to
potion
say
dark
that,
check, ground check, and like
it because
yeah, I mean, obviously that's kind of some draft is in general, and it might be like too much heavily. People rely too much on it, but at the same time, it's like I feel like it's rare that you want to bring them to a game, like or you're almost forced to bring them, which is not what you want.
Right.
Like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be relying on the Tangela a lot more than it wants to, and Delta Tangela, at least in my opinion, is actually significantly worse than regular Tangela because of the lack of Regenerator, even with like Dry Skin and even with a pretty undeniably better defensive typing. And this team never wants to not have one of that top 6.
Yeah.
I think the one that probably bothers me the most, which is why I called it out, is I could see situations for the other four, like especially Mischievous, because even though it's an ice type, like even like Mischievous is surprisingly decent, especially with Magic Guard to ignore the Stealth Rock weakness. But I do not like the Galvantula on this team at all.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel
think
like it
that
needs
should-
webs either.
It absolutely doesn't
particularly.
need webs. The only
the
mon
only
here that
angle
really
I see for
appreciates webs
webs-
is Annihilate.
Yeah, the only angle I see for webs
Yeah.
is that you force them to defog as you bring in Annihilate. Like that.
I mean,
Yeah.
also, to an extent, Annihilate likes webs because then it like outspeeds
True,
fast
Yeah,
stuff.
that's what I meant.
for like taunt
Less
stats,
defog
like
angle.
welcome taunt.
Yeah, and also, I guess like maybe like choice pen gouging. Like choice pen gouging can be a good set, but it's mainly like on Sun you see choice pen gouging for the most part.
I feel like that gouging is going to be boots locked for a lot of this because something we've actually forgotten to mention is, oh my god, the removal on this team is so bad.
Yeah.
Torn and Cryo, yeah.
No, there is Skuntank.
Oh, Skuntank.
Defog
And even
Skuntank.
then, like you have
Actually,
Torn
Torn
never wants to run
but-
defog, and like Cryo, you don't Cryo and Skuntank, you don't want to bring most weeks.
Right.
Yeah, no. And of the top 5, now I will admit 2 of them do resist rock, but one of them is rock weak, or 2 of them are rock weak, sorry. And more importantly, there is only a single relevant spikes immunity on this entire team, and spikes are probably the best in Gen 9 that they've
2
been
spike
since, like,
immunities.
Generation 3.
2 spike communities, but still, yeah.
No, I said 1 relevant. I don't think that Cryogonal is a relevant immunity.
Okay.
Because, like, especially because it's going to be boots anyway, most of the time.
Yeah, and like hazards are like one of the things that Milo hates the most. Like that's one of the ways that you
Yeah,
can break it is like hazards and toxic, like constantly forcing it to recover and like lose its APP is like one of the ways to actually beat it.
Yeah. Essentially, the only, like, actually anti-hazard tech that I really see here for the top 6 is Prankster Taunt on Tornadus, which isn't a move. It absolutely can run it, but it doesn't want to be running it every week.
Yeah. To an extent, I can also see like you set up like you don't want to give the monster free turn. Like you don't want to give gouging a free turn to DD while you click rocks.
Yeah.
Or
Yes, but I mentioned this already, but a lot of good stealth rockers are going to be ground types, and this team really doesn't like Earthquake.
True, that's also fair.
So that it makes it really easy for them to force switches that can get the stealth rock up.
Yeah. We should also quickly move on to the next one, to the next list. Any notes here?
Setting a timer.
Any notes here?
Yeah. So this team is. We already kind of mentioned the rock issue. Like a lot of the mods that are weak to rock granted are the low tiers, but like Torn and Gouging both being weak to rock in the core 6, so to speak, potentially could be pretty problematic.
Edgequake in general is, I think, the biggest issue here.
Yeah. But then, like, as noted, like, the team's weak to fire, but there's a Mega Milotic, so, like...
And gouging.
And a
Gouging
gouging, so,
fire.
like,
Fire types aren't realistically a problem.
Yeah.
Especially because, okay, if we're taking into context, the only Pokemon here that's actually weak to fire is the Ferrothorn.
Pretty
Because almost all of them come from low tiers that are very rarely, if ever, going to come.
Alright, where are we putting this?
I'd put it in not making playoffs, I think. Like it has good parts. Like the top 6 is undoubtedly good, but it still has like a decent amount of like big issues.
It's not well rounded.
If it was an 8-mon league and it was like the top 6 plus the Tangela and something else, I think I would like this team better and maybe could make playoffs. But when you've drafted 11 Pokemon and so many of them just aren't, because if you're going to draft more than 9 mons in this league, I think you really need to be able to justify those lower tier picks.
Yeah.
And this team really doesn't.
Yeah. Now moving on.
Yeah. All right. Lucky Shinx.
Immediately, the sad to see no Galate.
Yes, where's the Galate? You were so close to having the trifecta.
From a funny standpoint, I agree. From an actually building a good team standpoint, it is an objectively good decision.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the fun in that?
I really do mean my content or my comment on this. This is one of the most mid-tier filled 9-mon teams I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's like it's really only the Valiant and how much is Delta Vespa? Is that like a 15
15?
pointer?
I think we're going to move to 15 this season. It used to be 14.
Yeah.
But
like,
it's 15 now.
It's like Iron Valiant's the only like super duper top tier, and then you have like fairly high tiers in Vespa and Gardevoir, and then it kind of just drops off a cliff.
I mean,
It's
Snowball, Glimmer, and
also
Garm
flawed,
are all like high, like 10 to 13.
Yeah, but it's just strange to see a 9-mon team without like at least two 17-pointer Haramons to me.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's not a flaw inherently, because I actually think this team has honestly managed to round itself out pretty decently, even if there are some flaws.
Yeah, the very big major flaw I can see: removal. When you have Delta, Mega Gardevoir.
Yeah.
The removal
it's
here is
Glimora.
dog shit.
It's
Glimora is
which
it's just
it's not good for removal. Like it's like good to have it as an option for like a Glimora set, but it's still bad.
it very rarely, if ever, wants to actually run Mortal Spin, which essentially does Titanol still get defogged, or is that
No,
only
that's only
only
Snowball.
Snowball gets
Okay,
debugged.
then this team is never removing hazards.
Yeah,
Which
and like
is especially problematic because it's not only Mega Delta Guard, it's also Delta Yon Mega as the Terra Captain, which
yeah.
is
You know-
not something you want taking Rock's chip, because that's something that really values its item slot.
Oh yeah, that as
And
well.
on this team, it's definitely going adaptability more often than it's going.
Oh yeah, for sure.
To be entirely honest, I actually don't love Delta Yon Mega as a Terra Cap. I feel like
Without Sun,
I see the vision, but I think it's better on a Sun team because
without
of
Sun,
the way
I
that
think it's not
adaptability interacts
Yeah.
with it. Adaptability
Or even
kind
rain
of ends
teams.
up.
or Rain.
Oh, and
without
as well.
And weather
Yeah,
teams.
it's an
Yeah.
excellent multi-weather mon. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the way that adaptability interacts with Terra ends up kind of making the mon lose power
Awkward. Yeah.
after it pops
Yeah.
the Terra, which means that it usually wants to use its Terra to beat very specific checks.
Yeah.
It's why,
But
like,
that
Terra
comes at the cost
Crawdon-
of its performance in the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's why like Terra Crawdon on paper seems crazy, but then in practice is like, oh wait.
Yeah, the power
it
boost is
was-
really weak if you like stab Terra, and if you Terra to another type, I think you lose adaptability for like your water
You
stab.
lose adaptability on your normal
You lose
stats.
adaptability for your previous stabs. You only gain it for the Terra
Yeah.
type stab. Which
But,
can be useful.
yeah.
It's a trade-off. It's absolutely a trade-off.
Yeah,
However, I do think it's a net loss in most situations.
yeah.
Also, one other thing I'd like to talk about quickly. Do you see this ghost matchup here?
Wait, which one was it? Oh.
Yeah,
Oh.
their only ghost resist is type null.
Yeah, that's kind of bad. Especially
They are forced
When
to
you
bring
ha-
type null every time there is an even remotely relevant ghost type.
and you don't even have
Yeah.
like a good like neutral switch in because like your
No.
bulkiest mons is a slow bro.
Slowbro, which is
And-
gonna get bopped.
The highest special defense thing, because let's be real with ourselves, most of the good ghost types are special attackers with a handful of exceptions,
Yeah.
is Mega Delta Gardevoir, which is taking Stealth Rock and Spike's chip every time it switches in, so it's not a switch in.
Yeah.
Type itself is a pretty solid ghost type switch in, although it can't do anything back to most of them.
Yeah.
But it's not good as your only ghost type switch in.
Yeah.
Which is, I will admit, I think that's a very easy pitfall to fall into. It's one that I've fallen into before. It's easy to just underestimate Ghost as an offensive type because these days there aren't as many Ghost type high tiers as there used to be.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
when previously amazing Ghost types, like just as an example, like Gengar, have not necessarily fallen off because Gengar's still excellent, but they're not in the spotlight anymore.
Yeah, like it's mostly just Dragapult.
Dragapult's. And even
But
then, I feel like
that's-
Dragapult's more known as a dragon type than as a ghost type.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, they're obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like,
But either way, it's still like
not great.
Vespiquen doesn't actually take neutral hits well.
Not
It's
particularly.
mainly carried by like all the resists
Yeah.
with levitate.
Yeah.
Like it can take them in a pinch, but it's still a Vespiquen with bulk with the bulk line. It's more so like Steel Fire with Levitate is an amazing combo because you just resist so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when this team has a really good tight matchup into the opponent, I think it's going to be pretty successful because I think the offensive coverage of... Admittedly, the offensive coverage is kind of really limited to just the Gardevoir and the Valiant and the Darmanitan, because Yanmega, we've already talked about, it can be very threatening offensively, but it has some flaws as a Terra Captain. Zygarde is potentially very strong, but also is quite weak initially. It either needs like a choice band or like a really good matchup to really get going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the offense is kind of limited here. A lot of this team feels very... I wouldn't call it passive, because it's also kind of underestimating Glamora. Glamora has 130 special attacks still.
And it also has Meteor Beam now, which can be and great coverage. So I definitely
offensive
you get
Glamora can be quite good.
Yeah,
it's just like Glamora's speed tier kind of holds it back from being able to do as much for this team, I think.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, yeah. I also like, and once again, no, Hazards are good. Removal was the big thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Removal
Hazards are good.
Hazards, I think, are
Hazards are
fine.
fine with Glam, yeah.
Oh yeah, Glamora and Vespene are more than enough hazards. It's removal. Yeah. I almost feel like you drafted this thinking Vespene had the fog when it doesn't.
It feels like a mon that should have defog, but then you remember the Delta and Insurgents was... Insurgents devs were kind of allergic to giving their custom mons removal, so...
Yeah.
Alright.
It's like, I think it's like pretty good. I mean, do we move on to the...
I think we move on to the tier list. I don't know
what else to say. Better or worse
I almost feel like it's in between the previous two.
Okay, so
I think not making playoffs is the safest bet, to be honest. Because
I put it up here.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because
I like it, but there's still like some issues.
Okay,
it feels like, honestly, like what I mentioned before about it being comprised of mostly mid tiers. Unfortunately, most of the high tiers are gone at this point, so it's kind of not really something that can be patched up. But I do feel like that kind of is something that ends up to the detriment of the team in the end.
Yeah, and like, although I always like seeing like more balanced teams. Unfortunately, top heavy is kind of just the way to go.
Yeah,
especially
if you can.
Insurgents.
Insurgents.
Yeah. All right. Next up.
Right, moving on. Hey,
all
look,
right.
this guy.
Yeah, I'll let you guys decide first, and then I can respond later.
Sure. So, of course, the most obvious thing in this team is that there isn't a Mega Substrika on that. I wonder what happened there. But there is
I don't know.
Rune Growths, though. So we do enjoy those.
I think my opinion of this team can be summed up in a very small number of words. Everything is going to die, because that top three is, at least in my opinion, probably one of the scariest offensive cores in this entire division.
It is quite strong. Like, I commented the second and third mod looking familiar because I used the core of Mega Delta Lop and Torn in a like weird one-off insurgent side thing, and it kind of just smacked stuff. Like,
it does an incredible amount. Like
the two of them being able to pivot into each other is like kind of terrifying.
It's incredible. Like those two, and like even without getting into the Tornadoes, I just think that top two on its own is amazing, because like you could make the argument of, they're both physical attackers, so a physical wall should be able to handle it. But then you realize that there is quite literally not a single... There are exceptionally few physically defensive Pokemon in this game that do not get literally two-shot by Choice Band Rune Growths.
Yeah.
Exceptionally few. Almost anything that you can think of is going to get two-shot. Like, one exception... Quite literally, the only exceptions I can think of are, like, physically bulky, like, Terra Steel Pokemon with Levitate, which isn't a very long list. I think the only thing that really comes to mind is like a physically defensive Latios, which still is not the physically bulkiest thing in the world.
No.
And I just want to add, I faced one the first week. a max fist def Terra Steel armored flygun and head smash did about 50%.
Yeah, that's your margin. If you
Yeah,
can get a hazard up, yeah. There are no ruin gross checks. There are only ruin gross stopgaps and prayers.
Yeah.
And then you have the tornadoes to back it up by killing anything that actually is a bit too hard for them to break through. And hell, the steel types still just lose to Lopunny most of the time. I'm an absolute Mega Delta Lop truther. I absolutely believe it's one of the best megas in the format.
The amount of momentum that this team has to get in Runegross is like one of the I think one of the definite strong points here, because like just being able to get in Runegross and click button is just you make huge progress just doing that. Like it forces your opponent almost to question: do I actually want to bring defensive mons that just let in Runegross?
Yeah, like the main thing that I could have seen as a criticism of that is like, oh well, Delta Lopunny and Tornadus are fast pivots, which aren't usually as good for getting things like Runegross in, but then you picked up Slowking, which it's a teleport, and if it's not teleport for some reason, then it's Chilly Reception, which are both really good pivot moves.
Yeah.
And also, I'm legally obligated to bring it up. Mega Delta Lopunny has Lovely Kiss, which I believe makes it the single fastest sleeper in the game, with like obviously not accounting for Choice Scarf. Like the amount of versatility and setup opportunities that could create for either itself or other Pokemon, which let's be real, the only mon doing any setting up on this team is like Tornadus with plot. That's going to create opportunities. It's not something that comes every week, but it's a amazing move that is absolutely one of the most underrated tools in its learn set.
Mm.
Oh, and also there's a Terra Regenerator mon with a pretty solid bulk, and there is Terra Delta Goddle.
I like the Terra Core a lot. Like
it's
because
I do think it's a shame.
Terra Venu, like being able to regenerate, like turn into a steel type and then just regenerate off stuff.
Yeah,
really good.
Well, actually, there is. Actually, it's banned here, but there is a faster sleeper. Technically, or two.
It's like Primal.
No, Mega Sceptile with Grass Whistle.
Comedy.
Which is, and then there are also Prankster Greninja with Delta Greninja with a Grass Whistle, and Prankster Whimsicott with Grass Whistle.
Yeah, you can see the differences. One thing that I think is like a little bit of a shame with the Terra is I'm always a person who likes to have at least one offensive Terra, but that is not an objective metric by any means, and this Terra defensive core is fucking insane, partially because even just on their own, they're already really good defensively.
Yeah. And like this team already has such good offense. It doesn't really need a Terra offense.
It doesn't need an offensive Terra. Like you can tell it's like it's offensive top 3, and then it kind of just pivots into bulk for like almost the entire rest of the team. Yeah. Which is honestly, that's actually how I usually like to draft Insurgents, is just strong top 3 and then shitload of defense. And I think Zeb played into that perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
The Zarude is admittedly like I recall like there weren't many better options at that point than the Zarude when the Zarude was on the table.
Yeah.
It's alright. It's an
alright
Pokemon.
I don't know how to feel about it, but yeah, it was mostly to the point of like I just wanted like a good dark or normal type, and I also kind of wanted like I think a secondary ground resist or water resist or ground resist. I think like that wasn't Skarmory.
Yeah, the overall, it's better than not having. There's worse things that could have been on this team than Zarude. Muck, I feel like, is just kind of here as a grounded poison.
I actually feel Muck is like general a lot better these days because it gained Knock, Drain Punch, and T-Spikes in Gen 9.
Yeah, that's
for sure. It's better than it was, but like on this team, I don't think it's going to be coming very often unless
that's fair.
is a major threat.
That's fair.
I am not going to mince words. The Zebstrika is absolutely a formality here. If that thing comes to the game, it's for an extremely specific reason because you have no trouble breaking waters.
Oh, you know the Zeb is coming anyway at some point.
Oh yeah. I generally try to bring everyone one at least once.
Is there anything on this team that learns Heal Bell? I believe Delta Venusaur does, but Actually, no, Delta Venusaur definitely does. I've run Heal Bell Delta Ivysaur before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think Muck has aromatherapy or something.
No.
Like, or maybe that's a little
I think.
Skeezing
Wait,
gets
does
it.
Sarud only have aromatherapy?
I think it only
Zarud
Okay,
has
no, it don't
double
actually.
damage itself.
Oh,
But,
yeah,
like,
no, it's not.
I feel like one of the only major criticisms I would actually make of this team is that it really, really hates Scald, aside from Grottle. But like you have, I think you have enough
Slowking
that it's
and
not a huge
Venu?
issue. No,
Yeah,
like its offense hates Scald because its offense is very, very physical. But
Torn?
again, I don't think it's a problem. Overall, I just think it's definitely the best team we've seen so far. I think
it's
at
very
least.
solid.
Yeah, before we rank, I also just want to say, like, yeah, the idea was basically just, like, when I got the top 3, like, that's almost my offense sorted. I could have drafted, like, a more immediate special breaker than Torn, because Torn, like, it can go, like, purely offensive, but it usually likes to plot first.
Yeah.
But even then, like, Venu with, like, the right Terra can be a pretty big offensive threat, because, like,
You can just
Even
run Terra
Psychic
Terra
Fairy
is
with, like,
still
Terra or, like, can actually be, like, it was in my first game just like, pretty good as like an offensive defensive mon. Like
Yeah.
it can tank it and
I mean,
throw it back.
Speaking from experience with the Delta Venusaur line, like even uninvested, it's throwing out a 95 base power move, which is obscene. I don't understand why Moonblast was allowed to be 95 in the same generation where the other special attacking moves were nerfed to 90, because that 5 base power is much larger than people think it is, and it's coming off of like 100 special attack in an. People don't usually talk about Fairy as an offensive type, but like we do not talk enough about how Fairy kind of actually has exceptionally few resists that actually have good special defense, because most poison types these days are low tier. Obviously, there's exceptions. There's like, but several of those exceptions, like the first one that comes to mind being Alolan Muck, don't actually resist Fairy.
Yeah.
And like Sneasler doesn't resist Fairy. Fairy
Like-
as an offensive type is something that needs to be respected more than it is, at least from my own experience.
Yeah.
Venusaur can absolutely be an offensive mon, especially when you remember, oh yeah, that learned Psycho Boost, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Like a
I used that in my first game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like one of the smaller negatives I can think of is I have 2 good removal options, but both kind of like not running it
Yeah.
in Scarm. Like it, Torn wants usually to go offensive, and Scarm can run it, but usually wants to run its own spikes. But it's, I mean, it's not no, and also like this speed tier going from Surferu to Torn. Like I don't know if people will respect Seb. It's like not ideal, but it's fine.
I think the one thing I disagree on is the removal being a problem, because your team kind of doesn't really give a shit about hazards, because let's be real, half of your top 3 is going to be running boots more often than not. Like, and when you have
Fair.
as good of a knockoff switch as Skarmory, like you don't give a shit about most hazards most of the time.
Yeah. And it's also like, do you really want to click Stealth Rock when in front of Ruin Grows?
Yeah.
Or give Ruin Gross a switch.
Oh yeah, give the switch. I mean, yeah.
I think we can go to the tier list at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I did note is that Zarude being the only like baseline ghost resist could potentially be semi-problematic, because like you can see here we got a bit of a ghost weakness, but
Yeah.
but other than that, I think it looks pretty solid.
Yeah,
like,
it's like
unironically that needs to take into context the Terra Delta Venusaur, which not only
Right.
removes one of the ghost weaknesses, but also that can absolutely go Terra Dark if it wants to. Like
It could, yeah. All right, where are we
it
putting
probably
this?
doesn't usually prefer it, but this is shooing for playoffs at minimum.
At least,
Like
yeah.
part of me wants to say Ascending to Heaven, but I don't want to imply any bias on that part. So.
Yeah, I think we put it in shoe-in for now, and then maybe depending on the other teams, we could maybe bump it up. We'll see.
All right, I think we might need to speed it up a bit for the future teams.
Yeah.
We've also said that like 2 or 3 times.
Okay, I think we need to start setting a timer. Let's set like an 8-minute timer.
Okay.
Or something, or like
Okay, I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay.
Okay. Kind of try.
All right, Edmonton
There's also I don't love the speed out. Like going from treads to POW is not great, and especially when I don't really count Tentacruel Delta as a real speed mon.
It's
you
not
only
This
so like you
team
only have
has-
like one speedy and one decently speedy option, and then I guess Lilkin likes her on Scarf, but it's still not ideal.
Yeah, no, this team's speed is one of the biggest problems with it. Like, almost every team that we've seen so far has at least one major offensive threat that can both go a plus attacking nature and kind of rip through the defensive core, because I'm also going to be very honest in that I feel like it's a defense that looks good on paper, but I do not think this is going to hold up in execution at all.
Yeah.
Treads is the only really physically bulky mon here, aside from the Bronzong.
Dirge is very physically bulky.
Okay, well, that's me misremembering Dirge's stats because
it has like 100 each defense.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
that's a bit fairer then. But like, I feel like this team is going to fold to like any physical attacker with like good dual stabs is going to rip through this team almost immediately. Like, just as a random example, this team is terrible in Infernape. Yes, there is a Skeledirge, but Skeledirge is not going to be taking either repeated knockoffs or repeated earthquakes from an Infernape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also with the context of Infernape not even being the most powerful firefighting anymore. Like,
yeah. There's also the issue of like, I mean, there is a lot of like, the physical offense is very good on this team, but when two of those mons are like really slow, or the Polar is not slow, but it's definitely not fast.
Yeah.
And like obviously you have POW, but then you also and you have like the Trick Room option with the song, but at the same time, like it can be tough to actually make it work when the speakers are just so far apart.
This team doesn't really ever want to run Trick Room, I don't think.
Yeah.
I feel like something that is most of the good Trick Room setters and Insurgents typically have a pivot option. The best ones have teleport, like the Slow Twins, but like usually they still have some way of like getting.
There's also Melweda with like Trick Room teleport. If you really want to.
I don't believe that Mullowetta learns teleport, but if it does, then I will.
Does it not?
No, it. I don't think it.
Let me check.
It might have U-turn.
I know it gets U-turn. That's why I said
U-turn. Yeah.
It gets both. It gets both.
Yeah, it's like,
it does.
Okay, Mullowetta can set Trick Room. This Mullowetta does not want to be setting Trick Room because
it's your Terramon.
It's not only the Terramon. It's the special offense.
Yeah.
I think I would go as far as to say that the Mullowetta is the only special offense on this team that has immediate power, because yes, Torch Song is an incredible move. That Skeledirge is being forced into a defensive role every single week.
Yeah.
And even if it will be running Torch Song, it's going to have to click other moves enough that it's not going to be getting to use that special attack boost.
Yeah.
And as a person who has Terra Delta Lilligant, you paired it with another Terra special attacker that is a better Terra special attacker.
Yes.
I don't think I have much more to say on this team. I guess the Hypnosis from Polyrath is kind of fun. But just overall, this admittedly is probably my least favorite of the teams we've seen so far.
One of my big problems with this team is when I see POW, I'm always thinking about how are you getting POW in to click button? And this team doesn't do that very well.
I mean, it's not that. Like, Tread's Lilligant Mellow, it's not that. It's not great, but it's not terrible.
Mellow doesn't want to run U-turn.
I wouldn't count Lilligant personally. I feel like
Lilligant also doesn't like running U-turn.
Lilligant really is not bulky enough to use the U-turn either. I think like Tread's Volt Switch and Mullowetta U-turn can definitely get POW in, but like that also requires you to be using those mons as a setup opportunity. Not as a setup opportunity, as a dedicated pivot for that, which only really Treads wants to do because Mullowetta wants to be on special offense on this team.
Yeah.
Which I have mixed feelings on Mullowetta, but I feel like if this team was structured a little bit differently, I would actually really like the Mullowetta here, to be honest. But as is, it's also the only real, like, it's the only really excellent Spadefmon, because, like, Snorlax's defensive typing is kind of exploitable, and its low Def is even more exploitable, which, actually, Mullowin is even frailer. I should shut up, ignore that last two sentences.
Yeah.
I think the summation of my thoughts on this is that you have what looks to be a good top two, through in round 3. It's like, I feel like it's like you have a team of 4 with the Mallow, the Snorlax, the Treads, the Pow, and then the Skeledirge, like, kind of is also there. And then your other 4 options are, like, not really amazing.
Yeah, it's...
Because Polymath's role also overlaps a lot with Qianpao.
It does. Here we can take a quick look at the type chart here, see if there's anything that stands out.
Not particularly, to be
I'm not
honest.
really
I mean,
seeing, anything
I'm
too
seeing
egregious
any
in that
actually
front.
hugely glaring weaknesses.
Yeah.
Like,
Alright.
There is also really quickly.
Yeah.
It's not the best, but not the worst either. Wait. I forgot. Does Tentacle get rocks? Spikes, I mean?
It gets regular spikes, yeah.
I think it's toxic spikes.
It gets regular spikes and T-spikes.
Okay, never mind. I take it back. I was
The
listening. The
unfortunate thing is
hazards
it doesn't
are
get
like.
rapid spin, but like I feel like
Oh,
rapid
yeah,
spin
that's
is
what it
actually
was.
Loses
good.
spin is the trade-off, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the hazard game is fine. Not amazing, but fine. Like, Treads, Tentacle, and Song are like fine.
Logan can still defog. Treads is one of the better spinners in recent years.
Like Treads is the main part why I like the removal, or like say the hazard game is fine. I think we can move on.
Yeah,
I think we can move on.
So
I'm gonna be kind of mean with this one. I think this belongs in might win a game.
Oof.
And the way it wins that game is if it gets a Swords Dance with Qianpao, but that's because Qianpao is one of the best competitive Pokemon of the last 10 years, and not because the team is actually good.
Yeah.
That might be being a little too mean, but
That's fine.
I really don't want to mince words.
Okay, yeah.
I don't like this game.
It's definitely one of the weaker teams we've looked at so far, so we'll put it there for now.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's going to hell, but it's not.
Alright.
Like the best.
Yeah. Let's move on.
Okay.
Joe. We have the team that has Mega Flygon and then drafted Latios round 9.
Yeah, that's. I can see it to an extent because they have similar checks, so you use one to break for the other, but it's still I'd still rather see a more different mon than what feels like extremely similar mons, and they even have similar checks with steals and fairies.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be the one that goes against the grain and says I think I kind of see the vision with it actually. Because the thing that you have to take into account is the buff to Luster Purge. So, if you view these two as supporting each other and wearing down the same checks, that special defense drop, plus, I know Latios doesn't run it, but it can run Flip Turn, once, one game in the season to potentially get a leg up on that.
Latios usually runs Flip Turn a lot.
On the choice
really?
sets, it
I haven't
now.
seen it very often, but
Okay,
well, I see the vision. I don't know if it's the best vision. There's definitely better picks, but I actually do see the vision because the Luster Purge buff is immense.
Yeah, and also I really like. Death might be the best hazard game in general. Tusk and Pagos both can set rocks, they both can spin. Obviously, Samurott with spikes. Jinkaton is a solid rocker, and Weezing is pretty can set T-spikes if the matchup calls for it.
Yeah. To be honest, you finish your thought first, sorry.
Oh yeah, and obviously, a lot of Flygon and Latios checks are weak to spike. A lot of steals and fairies will get weakened by spikes. So I can definitely see there's definitely several weeks where the game mostly comes down to Flygon and Latios with spikes breaking through for the other to finish off the game.
Yeah, it's just I think the only thing that I would really say is in any way an actual flaw is that the offense here is kind of overwhelmingly special because Samurott does do reasonable damage, but it's not a breaker. It's not something that's like it's more of a thing that supports the other mons while doing alright damage than something that does obscene damage. It really is only the Tusk. But also, Great Tusk just casually has one of the best offensive typings in the game, and also is one of the best physical attackers, potentially, ever. I'm gonna be real, I feel like just, like, the top 3... If this team just went, like, top 3, Terapagos, Tinkaton, and then, like, the Weezing, and then, like, shooing in the Lilligant and the Latios where necessary, I actually really like this. The only mon that I think is, like, actually worthless here is the Raichu. Like, I'm sorry, I don't see it. You don't need the removal from it because you have Terapagos Great Tusk. You don't need the offenses because Tinkaton is, like, an amazing offensive fairy, but, like, you do have Terra Delta Lilligant Water, which, like, if you needed to hit something with a fairy move for some reason, I don't know, I feel like a Tail Low Terra Blast from that would probably do the trick. And also the speed tier with the Latios is completely and utterly redundant.
Yeah. That's all fair.
Yes, the mons that are going to come are going to be predictable, but the mons that come have some decent set variety amongst them, so I don't think it's as much of an issue.
Yeah.
I also, like, I definitely agree, and, like, if you turn the Raichu into, like, a physical mon, or physical attacker, I think the team would be, like, in the very upper echelons of the teams here. Like,
I think it's already on the upper echelons, to be honest.
Yeah, like that.
It'd be even better.
Yeah, I definitely like.
This team's offense is fucking terrifying. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
The only thing is, like, it's the defense doesn't have the most longevity, but I think that's not the end of the world.
Yeah, but this is definitely like an offensive league team.
Yeah,
and you still have like Terapagos is like one of like the best like blanket checks of all time, just because of obviously because of the ability.
Together, I think is fantastic. Like that's a great pairing.
Yeah, like Terapagos being able to like immersion check basically anything and have like strong damage output to kill it, and even like get off a spin definitely helps this team a lot.
Yeah,
and also like having like one of the things Flygon hates the most are like obviously are hazards, and you have like the best spinner and a very good spinner, and technically also Raichu, but that's
So like. Or is it only Galarian that gets defog? Whatever.
Yeah, only
You have great Terapagos, you're fine. Yeah. And you're not particularly scared of ghost types, so you don't really need to worry about spin blocking.
Yeah. Quickly, are there anything on the type list?
I honestly think this covers almost everything pretty well, because like the ice resists that are here are pretty fucking good for the most part.
Yeah, I mean,
like ice is like the one typing, but like Tinkaton, you gotta put respect on Tinkaton. It might not look like the best defensive thing at first, but it has a surprisingly deep bag of tricks, and I think the same goes for the fairy weaknesses, because again, Tinkaton.
Yeah. Oh, like, and Weezing.
Like, Tinkaton, Weezing, Delta Lilligant, like, admittedly, this team actually doesn't really love fairy. Like, I think this team is going to struggle with Iron Valiant a lot, admittedly, but that's like the one fairy that I think is going to give it a lot of problems.
I mean, like a Namarus could be potentially problematic too, but...
Did a Namarus even get drafted?
I don't know, actually. I don't think it did, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing a lot of high-tier fairies when we went through this. But, like, yes, like, you really hate the Valiant matchup, but I think aside from the Valiant matchup, this team's pretty fucking great.
Yeah. And Weezing is pretty good into Valiant. Or decent into Valiant.
Yeah, it can be.
It forces Psychic, which, like, can be exploited.
Yeah, but we should move on.
Tinkaton's at least neutral,
right.
so...
This
is a shoe-in for playoffs. Yeah. There's no beating on the bush.
It's pretty solid. Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment.
Like minor adjustments.
Do you want to like? Or you finish?
I think with minor adjustments, like weighing whether or not you really need the Latios and getting rid of the Delta Raichu, and I think this would be ascending to heaven. This team is
like
also so close to the head.
Also, I think for fun we want to like start with putting everything in queue for playoffs, and then like choose like one or two at the end to go into Ascend to Heaven.
I think we just continue as we are. We'll see.
Fair enough.
It'll depend on if there's any teams that we feel like are good enough to just put there immediately.
Oh yeah.
Let's move on.
Moving on.
Let's move on.
Okay, Ollie Boy.
Ollie Boy. It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't have very many strong feelings on it one way or the other. You've got a couple of really good physical attackers. You've got like one really great special attacker in the High Dragon. Got some decent bulk. It's just a decent team. It doesn't have. I feel like the only real huge thing that I don't love is like the lack of a really consistent second good special attacker.
Yeah.
And
no, I disagree.
Can still fulfill that role.
Yeah, I definitely disagree on that part. High Dragon plus and you have Feeney, so McMurdo can and Corv, so McMurdo can almost like be designated into purely offensive.
McMurdo can put in some decent work.
Yeah,
I always appreciate the Ivysaur. I think it's. I just think it's a solid team. I don't have any major complaints with this.
The main thing I can see that can be or it's not the worst, but it's still kind of annoying. It's like the Hydreigon and Feeney anti-Sinjir because Hydreigon likes to click glare, and you have a Feeney, which is
I see that. I feel like that's something you have to concede whenever you draft a Feeney.
Yeah, that's fair. So like.
You can also say that about literally any mod that relies on Toxic to make progress. Like, I don't think that's a huge deal.
And
you can also just click glare. It's not actually that hard to play around your own misty terrain. Like,
it's just something to note. And generally I agree that this is definitely it's pretty good team. Like, I don't think it's like amazing, but it's just very solid overall. I think like no major flaws, basically.
It's a team that I think we'll probably see some good success. It depends. It's in the hands of a good coach. It'll do well.
Yeah.
Here
we can look at the type matchup chart quick. One thing I did notice is if you look at this electric and ice matchup, like going back to this team feels very Bolt Beam weak.
Very Bolt Beam weak? I'm gonna be real. I think that's complete and utter cap. I disagree.
I mean, it literally is, though. Like
Bolt Beam. If we're talking Bolt Beam specifically, right?
Yes.
Mega Delta Gallade is immune to one of them and has 115 special defense.
Okay, yeah, that's a Mega Delta.
Yes, it doesn't love taking Stealth Rock Ship, but also this team has two amazing defoggers and also Komala, which is,
and even Flygon and Driftblim. Which are
I forgot those guys. I didn't even know those got defog. Actually, I'm gonna be real.
Defog, yeah.
Driftblim is one of the very few that actually get defog.
And then when you look at the mons that are actually weak to electric, yes, a lot of the top tiers are weak to electric, but like Hydreigon and Feeney pair together so well that I don't think it's going to be a problem. And like you have Quad Resist, Delta Mech Mortar, like on paper it's a weakness that looks really bad. In execution, I'm not gonna say it doesn't matter. But I'm going to say that it can absolutely be played around.
And worst case, I think also you have like, you can just like bulk it like Terra Steel Flygon. Kind of cover a lot of those as well.
Other thing as well that I will say on that is that we have to keep in mind that almost every good Bolt Beamon is a special attacker, and there's an Eviolite Delta Ivysaur, which is fucking amazing into most special attackers. Because those typically don't want knockoff.
True.
I don't think that's a problem. I don't think it's a very big problem.
Yeah.
It's not a huge issue, but I definitely could see it being like just from a team building perspective from the opponent, where it's just like, oh, I can just run Ice Beam and T-Bolt and hit this entire roster.
Like, funnily enough, this team is extremely Mega Gallade weak. But obviously that doesn't matter.
If this team had to face Mega Delta Gallade, they would explode.
No, admittedly, you could say that about Mega Delta Gardevoir here, but like again, Delta Ivysaur kind of shits on Mega Delta.
Don't already do it. It's good, but either way, I think we can move on.
It's still a 4-point mon, but like the one time that thing's gonna come, it's gonna put in work.
Yeah, it's not
like a
like,
tier list.
Yeah, it's not like a
Oh yeah,
huge
tier list.
Honestly, I think I kind of want to put this in could make playoffs. Not above the mime team because I think there is a
Okay.
big gap between the two. But like, I feel like I wouldn't feel right saying that it's not going to make playoffs because it's an overall pretty sound team.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a low could make playoffs, but it still is a could.
Yeah,
make
I
playoffs.
definitely agree. I'd almost put it. Maybe I put it on par with the mime team almost.
I think it's just the mime team has more immediate like pressure with the offense.
That's fair, but this team also actually has a defensive backbone.
That's fair. That's fair.
It does.
There's arguments to be made. I think we can at least agree on the tier, though.
Yeah. I think we can all agree.
All right, let's keep going.
Right.
Okay. So, all right. So Hang Clay Z, Chicago City Race. So, what did I write for this? The ice matchup of all time.
Yeah.
Honestly, I actually do. I actually do still stand by that. To be honest with you. No. Yes, you have good resists. You have good resists, but I'm going to ask you to please think about what the good high tier ice types are, and think about how many of them get coverage that is going to annihilate the Wash Tom and the King David. Weavile has low kick. Chanpao has Sacred Sword. Delta Scyther exists in general.
Yes,
even fucking Delta Scizor. Now, I don't know if the Delta Scyther line got drafted, but like this team is gonna probably straight up lose to those. I'm going to be honest. And
I also
Volcarona.
Volcarona
Volcarona is probably the most. Volcarona doesn't want to take hits in a matchup where the ice types kind of can't deal with the King David or the Wash Tom. Then I think you're gonna be better off, but. I can see this team struggling with a lot of good offensive ice types because the resists also can't really consistently heal because Volcarona doesn't always love running Roost, but it can run Roost. The Umbreon Witch support also helps a little bit, but Umbreon is honestly a Pokemon that I think has kind of fallen off over the years. It's
it's really hard for it to actually it just gives so much free turns to set up or get in offensive mons or click hazards.
Admittedly, though, the ice matchup aside, I think aside from that, this team has some pretty good aspects. It's definitely scary offensively. There is an error on the team building doc. Mega Delta Metacham is base 100 speed. But that speed gap is that's a 100 to 142 speed gap.
Oh yeah, and this team also
Grafaiai is a prankster one.
It usually runs speed still.
Yeah, but it's not like a fast offensive threat, and it's not something that I think a lot of Pokemon are going to respect when speed creeping.
Yeah.
The actual
is just going to be, it's just going to hit you with a prankster move anyway.
The actual bad part I see, you don't really have a single mon that likes running Scarf. Yeah. So yes, Pulk can revenge a lot of things. But if any mon that boosts with speed, any DD mon, can be extremely scary unless you get the Gambit Sucker predictions right.
Yeah.
When you're
and you don't really have the bulk. Arena. Yeah, but DD mons are faster still. A DD Curum, Scale Shot, Garchomp, mons like that.
No, that's my point. Is the only Arena is very bad. And then your next fastest things are your base 100s, which I guess Mega Ultimate Gym did just get Trailblaze, but you have to use moves on those to get faster.
Yeah. So
fast choice Scarf Mons, just as a random example of a mon that's gonna give this team a ton of issues, Scarf Mienshao. A Scarf Mienshao with close combat, triple axle, knockoff U-turn. That's this team. The only you have is getting Flame Body burned off of Volcarona.
Yeah, and it doesn't really have that good bulk to actually take them. Glasgow Road and Wash Umbreon is not bad bulk, but it's still not the best. Road and Wash is actually pretty frail. It's just the Titan carrying it, and Glasgow is bulky, but it's also if there's any.
Its highest defensive stat is base 95. It's carried by the typing and the ability.
No, that's 125 defense.
Oh, it's 125 defense? Am I thinking of the speed? I'm thinking of the speed stat.
The speed is 95,
Yeah.
But still,
physically bulky, it's special defense split score relies very heavily on the poison heal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I have much more to say about this team. The only other thing being that, like, since we're on the topic of the speed, no King Gambit Sucker Punch is not enough to make up for that speed problem.
Yeah, and there's
King
also
Gambit
the
in
thing
general-
about. Oh yeah.
Actually, one thing that I do want to talk about, can we talk about the Terramons here?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
They're not.
I don't think they're the
greatest.
worst, but I definitely
Not
agree that they're not
terrible.
great either.
But they're Terramons because there's nothing on this team that is Terra legal that's better.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because Umbreon
I honestly
Terra
kind
is
of rate
not.
Terra Umbreon.
I don't think it's bad, but Terra-ing
I think Terra Umbreon's
it's
probably
better than the
because
other
of
two,
Liquefy.
at the very least. It's better than
Yeah.
Liquefy. Having that
Yeah.
option would actually do a lot for this team defensively. Now that I think about it, I would honestly recommend making that transaction if you had the points for it.
Yeah.
Even just to transfer the Terra Cap.
I don't think Umbreon
One
has a Terra
final
attack,
thing I'd
actually.
like to mention: this team's kind of like immediate offense are kind of like just Medicham and kind of Pult, but Pult have some weeks where it can't like threaten offensive as much.
Okay. Pult? Okay, I admittedly have the
I guess
Pult hot
Gambit can
take
be like-
that
I
Pult
guess Cam
itself is actually really weak, in my opinion. The thing that makes it so fantastic is the set versatility.
Yeah.
And like once it
Yeah.
boosts, it's usually pretty powerful because it's relying on some fairly high base power moves, at least on the dragon type side. Which
Yeah.
is usually what's going to be clipping. And then the ghost moves are good because there's so few things that resist ghost.
Yeah.
Like I'm never going to be the person who calls Dragapult a bad Pokemon, but I do take issue with people calling Dragapult like a breaker or something. That's not really its role.
Yeah.
The only immediate breaker on this team is the Medicham, which
Yeah.
is absolutely a problem. King Gambit can break. It doesn't always need to be Swords Dance, but the thing that usually allows King Gambit to break is Supreme Overlord, which... Yeah.
Necessitates your team being dead.
And then
Yeah.
and then the one other thing I would maybe note on is the hazard game, because congratulations. I mean, it's not bad. You got two solid defoggers, but your only hazard setter is the Gliscor, which
Excuse you, there's also a Rocks King Gambit.
I
I'm
think.
sorry. Yeah.
I think Medicham might get rocks as
Actually,
well.
Medicham gets Stealth Rock too. Yeah.
Their only stealth rocker is the Gliscor.
But yeah, it's basically just like Gliscor.
functionally.
It's Gliscor, and then you do like I think the removal side is fine. I think Rotom Wash Gliscor's arena is alright, but like the hazard setting is like you drafted multiple mons that really want that, and then it's going to be forcing Gliscor to do that every single week, which like it can absolutely, but it does hurt the versatility of the mon.
Yeah. Okay. Where do we? Wait. Before, do we have anything to say about the type chart?
Yeah.
Not terribly. I don't think they have the type matchups.
Oh wait, I did from which this team that I said was like pretty ice weak.
I mean, they have.
it has a
Oh, you said so. It's not. Oh, yeah, it's polarizing the ice matchup. Like you're weak to ice or you're ice resist.
Yeah, like, I brought it up, and it's especially just not good in the most high tier ice types.
Or my comment actually is that this team doesn't have Moonblast switch-ins. Like your Moonblast switch-in is Volcarona.
Oh yeah, no, the best resistance is Volcarona. Yeah, that's
is not a Moonblast switch-in.
It's not a Moonblast switch-in.
I mean, it has good def.
It takes the damage,
I mean, yeah,
but what are you going to do when your special attack gets dropped?
Volcarona is not an anything switch-in. Is kind of the route.
Yeah.
You don't want to.
I think we can.
Where do we put it? Where do we put it?
Yeah, well, let's.
This is not making playoffs. I think that's a pretty safe place to put it.
I'd almost put it. Might doing it. Oh no, actually no.
No, I think the offense. I think the immediate damage is too high to put it in might win a game. It's gonna.
I mean, it is kind of just Medicham. Like the problem with me is like it doesn't have great bulk, or like it has fine bulk but not great, and it also doesn't have that good of
the one thing that I think is notable with the Medicham is they don't really have the pivots to get it in. But I still think it's safer to put this in not making at like bottom of not making playoffs than it is in might win a game.
That's fair. Like the power of just Pult Medicham King Gab, it can like
it's gonna muscle through some stuff at the very least.
Yeah. That's just the next
one.
It
is absolutely a team that can just muscle its way through things. It's just not.
All right.
My respect for you is boundless. Please lose epically. Is it for the Sableye?
It's for the Mega Delta Sableye.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna kind of refrain on commenting on this one for the most part because I think, in an objective sense, it's like actually pretty good. I think the only real things I would comment on are most of the defensive Pokemon don't have recovery except for Moltres and Scizor. Wo-Chien is a waste of a team slot in almost every scenario.
Which I'm
No,
'Cause I
with
don't-
Terra, I actually like
Terra
Wo-Chien with
okay.
Terra.
Yeah.
Oh, I suppose it is with Terra. My brain just goes to the fact that Moltres is probably going to be wanting to Terra more often so it
I
can
mean,
run an item other than Boots.
I feel like maybe
Uh,
not, because like Moltres often likes its typing.
That's
Wo-Chien
fairly
wants to
true.
get away from the
That's fairly
typing.
true.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Obviously, Terra Moltres is great, but like
then I would say the Moltres could also. This team has a few decent Terra Captain options. I think the two that are here are good though. Like the only other one is like the Espeon. I think could maybe be a decent.
Reunion could be a good Terra Cap.
Yeah.
Or I assume it should be allowed. Yeah, it has to be allowed.
Yeah,
Reunion is definitely allowed. Like
Yeah.
I think the way that I can put this is just I think it's an overall solid team. It's not a team that I would personally want to run, but I don't have any major like objective problems with it. Aside from like I guess I don't know, I guess it leans a little bit
On setup.
further into like setup than
Yeah.
immediate damage, but
It is
because
very
like
setup-based.
mainly because of, like the Terrain Coco nerf, but like that's also kind of underestimating like the possibility of an offensive Terra Moltres.
Yeah.
Because like
Like Band
125 special attack, Terra Fire, Stab Fire Blast with the choice specs, like it's not going to be a common bring, but like it exists. And
Yeah.
Sneasler still has immediate power. Like it has
Yeah.
very powerful stabs off of a reasonable attack stat. It does not need to do Sword Stance to do damage.
Yeah, the
Band is
main problem is
I
just
am just
that,
a
like,
very opinionated person who thinks that Terrain Sneasler is one of the single most fucking boring archetypes in Pokemon history. Honestly, any Terrain on Burden Sweeper is one of the most boring things I think you can draft. I wish Sneasler had gotten literally any other ability because it means that it's the only thing anyone ever does with it, which is disappointing as hell because I think that mon is so much more than just a Terrain Sweeper, which is not me saying that the Terrain Sweeper set is not the like objective best one that can ruin entire teams in one turn. It can. I just think it's lame.
that's yeah.
But overall, good team, in short, is my opinion. I don't
Yeah,
think
I also
much to
like-
say about it.
Generally, like it's not my favorite team because, like I said, the defensive core is solid, but also like doesn't have like a lot of longevity.
Yeah.
And also, like the offensive part is also
Actually-
pretty good, but doesn't have like usually doesn't have much immediate power.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it has pretty much like a lot of everything, or like
Yeah.
a
There's
decent.
enough versatility that it's going to get by.
Yeah.
The only thing that I actually think I'm noticing upon a second look is that it's kind of shit in the ground types. Like any ground type that slaps on Stone Edge to hit the Moltres is gonna kind of fuck this team sideways because Scizor doesn't really. Scizor can absolutely take Earthquake, but like it's not the best
Wo-Chien.
option.
Wo-Chien.
Yeah, no, that's the point. Wo-Chien is the
moment.
only good ground type switch in.
Uh,
And
there's
it's
a
a
dozen
team
Yizzle
that
right
used
there,
to-
actually.
I suppose it does have like Wisp Levitate, but it can't heal. It's not going to be able to really do it repeatedly. It
Yeah.
depends on the ground type, I think, because like Reuniclus is not going to be good into like a Garchomp, but I think it's going to be good into something like. Okay, well, it's not a traditional like offensive one, but like say like you're fighting a Hippowdon, I think Reuniclus is a pretty good switch into it.
Yeah.
It's just like look at the top 6, and like look at the fact that there is a Terrain Coco Sneasler. People are going to bring their Stab Earthquake, and they're going to make it an important part of their game plan, which is going to mean the Wo-Chien has to come a lot. And being being the main ground resist is contradictory to Wo-Chien wanting to Terra out of its typing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's also like Moltres can still like tear into something like grass pretty decently.
Moltres absolutely can. The
Yeah.
team relies on its Terramons to deal with ground types. It's not an impossible ground matchup. It's just
Yeah,
like I
that's
think
fair.
that's the one thing that really stands out to me as a
Yeah.
major.
I also never mind. Hazard game once again, not amazing, but pretty good. Like Gudra, is Gudra the only rocker?
No, Reuniclus.
Or Reuniclus, I guess.
No.
Okay,
Gudra Reuniclus.
Oh, Sableye, actually.
yeah, I'm not going to say it.
Gudra Reuniclus. I mean, you've got Defog Moltres. Defog Boots Moltres is a good mon. I
Yeah.
feel like the only
Defog
defogger
Scizor.
here that's really like averse to it is Tapu Koko.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't want to get rid of the terrain. Admittedly, like that is a thing that is worth noting in and of itself, is that the removal gets rid of the terrain, which is contradictory to the main game plan here. Because
Yeah, although
despite the Arcanine being the pick one, I think this team's win con more often than not is going to be the Sneasler. And also, because it's inevitably going to get brought up, no, Espeon is not an anti-hazards tactic.
I also wanted, like, I think my final thought, why is there no Paradox Mons? I mean, in a sense, I actually kind of like it, because, like, draft the Iron Mon with
I'm gonna be honest
Coco,
with you.
but
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think I know the answer. I think the answer is because, like, with the exception of Bundle, all of the Iron Mons that would have actually been worth drafting had already gone by the point that the Coco was picked
that's
up.
fair. That's also fair.
Or
that might be something to be afraid of, is, like, the opposing... the opposing
ones, yeah, that is a thing to watch out for. Absolutely.
Oh, I also just remembered one more thing.
Uh-huh.
Your poison type is Terra Wochian.
Oh,
which
yeah. Well,
you hate
absorb T-spikes when it comes.
I forgot Sneasler.
Okay, Sneasler absorbs the T-spikes, and from the fairy type angle, they have enough resist that I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah, I forgot about Sneasler being a poison type.
I mean, it's because the brain registers it as an offensive poison type when typically we regard poisons as more like a low-tier defensive thing.
And to be fair, you like, if you run into like T-spikes and you don't want to throw Sneasler early, there's a decent chance like 3 of your 6 months bring boots. Like Coco, Arcanine, and like Moltres, and like Caesar doesn't care. So I actually take that back. You don't care that much about T-spikes.
Yeah, I think we can move on to the tier list at this point.
One other thing I wanted to comment on quick. I don't like this team's Ghost matchup, but it's partly...
Look, if there's one thing that Wolchian is good at...
Well, yeah, but
if there's one thing that Wolchian is good at, it's taking a Ghost hit.
Well, yeah, but like you
and also there's a Gudra.
Are going to be tarrowing out of that, but the reason I don't mind it particularly much here is locking into Ghost moves versus a Delta Arcanine team is death. So
yeah, like choice Ghost types aren't going to exist against this, and honestly, Terra Dark Wolchian I think is actually legit. Like I respect that.
That's fine.
Yeah,
it's not like a god, but like Wolchian isn't a god.
Yeah, okay. So where do you put it?
Drafted knowing the role. I think I want to put it in could make playoffs. Like, but
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Are we ranking the tiers or?
Let's not bother.
That's fair. Yeah,
unless we have some like really strong opinions.
I don't think it's a shoe-in, but like it's a good team. I see it pretty likely making playoffs. It's just not guaranteed.
Yeah.
I respect. I suppose I respect the Sable.
Going and go to the next one.
Yeah. Move on.
Go to hell.
Right.
But on an objective point, the team is mostly fine. The major part for me is the Terramons. It just has to be addressed. That's so bad.
It's like, very clearly a joke. Like it is very clearly a joke, to be honest with you.
I mean, what they wanted, they literally asked to have this in the chat, was a spot or guard, which are both banned.
I mean, okay, well, that's a
wait.
Not reader issue.
Why are there 2 Grafaias?
That's an issue on Necro's part, I think.
Supposed to be there? Wait, hold on.
Yeah, go check that, actually.
Let me check.
Yeah.
Okay, Grafaiai aside,
nope, Grafaiai was drafted twice.
Oh.
Uh-oh. Okay, well, that's not my problem, so I think we just move on.
Let's do that later. Let's ignore that for now.
Zeb, you have other things to worry about. Let's focus on the actual PRs for now.
Someone pick up a transaction? Anyway.
Both are currently on the... never mind. Yeah, let's ignore it.
Is Miltank Terra legal?
Yes. Wait, this team also has...
I think if they just add Miltank as a Terramon, I think that's fine.
It also has 2 points left over, so you can even Terra Claude if you want.
Yeah.
I thought Claude was Terra.
No, Claude is not that good. Terra. Like it likes Terra, but it's not like great.
I think honestly, my thoughts on this team are pretty straightforward overall. I do respect picking up the Palafin and then drafting one of the best water absorb mons just to remove a potential check. And also to help with the opposing waters that Palafin can have trouble with, Zebstrika pairs well with it. Cinderace is a good mon. I don't have any major opinions on Cinderace. I think the Espathra could be pretty safely dropped. Espathra's non-Terra Espathra is like the most BL Pokemon of all time. Like if it doesn't have Terra, it's kind of shit. If it does have Terra, it's really, really good. And I think it should just be undrafted on this team and replaced with like almost anything.
Yeah,
like get a Mesprit or something. I don't think Mesprit was drafted. You don't need the speed tier. Like
yeah, like the only
but like.
Yeah, Sponsor feels almost just like a noob stomper. Like, if you don't know how to beat this path at this point, that's kind of just on you. Especially on Terra.
If you don't know how to beat an Espathra, you shouldn't be in Sky Division.
Yeah, that's the point. Like, picking up Espathra, if you're like a good player down in Abyssal, I could see it do well. But in Sky, everyone should be of a pretty good level. I don't see it doing very well.
And also, even talking from the noob trap angle, I unironically think that Palafin is better as a noob trap mon than the Espathra, because if we were talking about this team in like a lower tier, like it was the same team, people would over prep for the Espathra and then not prep enough for the Palafin. Like from that.
Or the
I think my opinion on this team can be summed up pretty handily as just like, yes, it has problems, but of any team that we've seen so far, I think the problems are the easiest to fix. Like, just turn the Espathra into a decent, like, psychic of a similar price, because I do like that being a, like, special attacking psychic type. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I would also, and obviously the Terra issue.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, there is one other thing I would want to make note of. Draft an actual remover. Because, like, you're gonna one of them is going to need to draft the Grafai. I'd imagine. I don't know which one got it first. I'd imagine whoever got it first.
Let's ignore that for let's just pretend Grafai is on the team for now.
Get a remover. You have a team that doesn't love hazards. Cinderace does not count because look at this team's game plan. This team wants to set hazards.
That's true. Yeah.
Cinderace doesn't count. You need a real defogger or a real rapid spinner.
And there's also like a part of me that feels like Clodsire, Miltank, Garganacl all feels fairly similar in that they're like good bulky walls, but none of them have recovery. All of them have like one hazards. They all feel like a similar-ish role, and it could make you really passive if you bring like two or even all three. Like, honestly, it could be.
I think this team could pretty easily drop the Garganacl, to be honest.
Yeah. Like you don't need the ghost resist.
You don't need the ghost resist because you actually wait. Do they need the ghost resist?
They need to drop one of the Miltank.
You don't need the normal resist because you have a Delta Milotic, which is probably one of the best defensive ghost types in the game. One of, if not, actually no, I'd say the best defensive ghost type in this format. Like, obviously not Ubers or anything, but like, replace the Espathra, replace the Garganacl, other things with the low tiers. I think you get rid of the Puzzle, and then obviously there's the evident future issue. But I think this team could be fixed pretty easily. I don't think fix. And to be honest, because of that, I kind of don't really want to horribly rate it in a vacuum like this, because I think this is a team that is going to have a lot of transactions. I mean, quite literally, it's going to inevitably. So,
yeah, I'd also say, like, it's not the worst because you do actually cover most of the resists you typically see, but this team doesn't have a steel type. But
replace the Garganacl with the steel.
Yeah, it actually had.
There is one major thing here that you all haven't commented on yet. This.
Oh, never mind.
This team has no ground resist, and it has 6 ground resist.
Go back to the main paste real quick. Go back to the main paste, because I literally brought this up already. Turn the Espathra into a Mesprit or a Uxie if they haven't been drafted already.
I mean, I don't think
that solves enough. Like. It's not enough, but it's a first step. And then you can replace the Garganacl with something else. Also, 2 of those weaknesses are +1 mining.
Yes,
one of which is going away. One of them
is going away. I don't know why Graphite
This
is on
is-
here. You have a normal, you have a poison, you have
This
like the
is-
speed.
This is why I've kind of refrained from saying much about this team in actuality, is because it is going to have a lot of grace change. It's going to have
Yeah.
a lot of transactions.
Yeah.
I think what I will say as my final thing on it is, with the idea of an Espathra being a Lake Trio member instead, I actually do really like the top 5 plus one of the defensive mons, but that's all
Yeah.
I think I really have to say on it.
Alright,
I think we'd still have to rank it as it is. As it
No,
is,
we absolutely do. We can't rank it
as it
on
is,
changes
the
and
team is going to hell.
going to
Yeah.
hell. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolutely going to hell. Look, man, Garchomp got drafted. Even
Yeah.
fucking Delta Regirock is going to be an offensive threat to this team. That should not be a thing.
Yeah.
That's going to hell. But I think if with the transactions, it would probably go up to not making playoffs. But as is, yeah, it's absolutely going to hell.
Yeah.
Right now, it is
We're
I
halfway.
gotta
We need
use
to speed
that.
up. We're halfway.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Let's set a timer. Let's actually set a timer.
I've been
Okay.
keeping track of sub 8 minutes. Do you want to do it at 5?
Yeah, I think we just need to talk less. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's move on. Okay. Netherlands Nido Kings.
Insane defensive core, like Glow King, Tinglu, Zapdos, and if you absolutely need it, Terra Avlog is also pretty good in certain matchups.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I think I know. Sorry to interrupt you, Zeb. Finish this off first.
Oh yeah, and also the Hazard game, you don't need more than Tinglu,
Not really.
and Zapdos is good removal. Lug exists,
Yeah,
Yep.
it's bad.
and obviously you only have you have few months with on the Hazard game, but they do it so well that you don't care that much.
Yep.
It's fine, yeah.
I think, honestly, it's a really stupid way to analyze this team. My opinion on this team is, you have eyes. You can see that it's good.
Yeah.
S's only comment is, why does your best physical attacker have physical attack? The answer is because it's fucking Delta Sceptile.
I mean,
Even
yeah,
with
that's
Guts. Even with Guts, or even with the physical attack being kind of low, Guts. It is a Gutsmon.
That's basic.
With 120 speed.
That might be my only negative.
Is that the physical offense is kind of
It's literally just Sceptile. That's it.
pretty much, yeah.
I think that it's undeniably a flaw, but also Chandelure can, I believe, 2-hit KO Blissey, so who really gives a shit?
Yes.
Also, that's also kind of untrue, because Mixed Greninja exists. I think Tinglu has 105 base attack. They're not mons that are investing it. The only one that invests is Teltaseptile, but it is incorrect to say that this team does not have options for special walls.
Oh yeah,
does.
it's definitely not bad. It's
terms
more
of-
the only flaw I can think of is the
Yeah, it's the only
Yeah,
flaw.
otherwise this is
Well,
very solid.
it's also, I have to say, it's not necessarily a flaw, but this is a 7-month team that sometimes brings Avlog.
True.
But it's such a good 7-month
Chinchu's
team
going to come,
that I
Chinchu's
kind of
going to
don't.
come to Walcoco. I'm not even joking. The Chinchu's going to come to Walcoco. And I'm gonna be
It's
real.
still-
I am the person who disagrees. I do not think that is a flaw, because
Yeah, that's what I say.
Fine.
drafting
sure,
a team of
yeah.
You finish first. Sorry, I don't want to.
Oh yeah, obviously, usually the problem is if you have such a small pool of actual viable mons, it's gonna be easier to prep for. But most of your mons are already fairly straightforward, but so good that, oh yeah, Tinglu's gonna have oh yeah, Glow King's gonna be Fat Pivot. Oh yeah, Chandelure's gonna be Breaker. You don't care that they know what's coming. It's so good that you probably can do well either way.
And to be honest, my thought on 6-mon teams has always been that drafting a team of 6+ shitters, I am of the opinion that it's only really ever a problem if the team is overly predictable and if the team isn't powerful enough to justify it. Which, while these mons do have pretty clearly defined roles, they still have versatility within those roles. For example, Glow King could be Toxic Spikes. It could be Assault Vest. It could be Chilly Reception. It could be so many different things. And the only looking at this type chart, I do notice the fighting weakness. But I think if we go back,
There's a lot.
and we look at the mons that are actually
There's
fighting
Zapdos Gloaking. There's Zapdos
yeah,
Gloaking.
there's
Who
Zapdos
cares?
Gloaking, and also one of the fighting weaknesses is Terra Avalug, which isn't real.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not a fighting weakness.
And also Delta
Yeah.
Noivern. Actually, Delta Noivern is still a fighting weakness because
Delta
of like
Noivern is a fighting weakness.
Terranormal.
Delta Avalug is not. As long as you're not stupid enough to come in on a Delta on a fighting move with Avalug, which I know Max, he's not stupid enough to do that.
Yeah, like is there a fighting type that could break like if it has like rock and dark coverage? Actually, no, that's still hard to break through because you just slap on Culber on Slowking and you just
I'm gonna be real. I feel like this is the team that's probably the closest to ascending to heaven, at least in my opinion. Like just off of the sheer fucking bullshit that is Chandelure with that many things that help beat its checks. Like the Sceptile to beat like a Blissey, the Greninja to set Toxic Spikes, the Slowking to set Toxic Spikes. Like, I don't think I would put it in Ascending to Heaven, but I think it goes top of shoe-in for playoffs.
I don't disagree. Yeah, that's fair.
Valid. Yeah.
Okay, alright, let's move on.
Moving on.
Okay,
Chelsea.
Quebec City Poliwags, Chelsea. Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You have a Kartana as your physical offense.
Yeah, pretty much.
Don't discount the Kyurem, but still.
DD Kyurem is.
Kyurem's a mixed attacker. I'm talking a thing that's like a dedicated physical mon. You have a Kartana.
Yeah, that's definitely not ideal.
Pretty much.
But to be fair, Kartana is like one of the better physical attackers.
Kartana's amazing. I love Kartana. I don't think this team has the ability to break a lot of good physically defensive mons. Like the only ones that I can think of that's really going to be is like
breaking. Do you mean breaking Spadef mons?
Or no? Sorry. You're right. That's what I meant. My brain got wired because obviously the other way around. It's like it'll be good into like it'll be able to break like Blissey. It'll be able to break like Tinglu can be pretty physical. Spadef fat. It's just like
I mean,
at
the same time,
something I genuinely wonder.
You first.
When you look at this team, can you tell me what the hell this is actually trying to do? Like,
that's
what is the identity of this team? Like, you have a web setter and then a bunch of Pokemon that I guess like kind of need webs, but like base 100 and 109 isn't really what you think of when you think of a webs team. And then your only Moon Abuser is pretty unambiguously the worst of the dedicated Moon Abusers because it does not want to be in the state where it uses the ability. And also it's a defensive mod, it doesn't really want to use Absolution.
Yeah.
I mean, the actual Moon Abuser is Chiyu.
I guess, yeah, but like...
and having boosted, one of Chiyu's, one of the flaws is it can struggle to break through some really bulky fire assists with Arc Pulse.
Yes, which the Lunatone helps with that. But also, this team really just doesn't want to bring the Lunatone to games. So, like,
how
much of a benefit that even is up in the air.
Yeah,
I think that's my main thing with this team is just I look at this and I just don't know what this is actually trying to do.
Yeah, it's not offensive enough to be like an HO team, even though you have like webs and like a lot of offensive pieces, but you don't have the bulk to stay in games either. Like you have Tangrowth Milo is like pretty good defensively, and like Tenta can do stuff, but at the same time, it's not the best compared to some of the other defensive cards on the other teams. Like you might win some games just of like pure, not bullshit, but like card Cure Machiu. Just those three can break a lot. So it's still possible to win, but it's going to be a lot tougher than some of the other teams.
I don't think this is a team that's so bad that it's going into the might win a game tier. I just think it's like a team that lacks an identity and it lacks a real cohesive strategy behind it.
Yeah.
I think honestly, if I had to hazard a guess, I feel like this is probably a team that was sniped a lot and had to rush to fill holes.
Maybe, yeah.
And my suggestion would be, we're late enough into the video that anyone who would abuse suggestions like this, I think probably stop watching by this point. Just lean into the moon shit. Delta Rosa Raid and
Lean
Mega
into
Delta
it or remove
Typhlosion.
it. Lean into it or remove it.
Lean into it or remove it. And also
Yeah.
just get rid of the Rabambi. Replace the Rabambi with a different Pokemon. What I
Yeah.
would personally do is I would lean into the moon just because of how powerful Moon is. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you have enough things that you could drop. Like, just as an example, off the top of my head, drop Milo, drop Rabambi. Wait, how many transactions are there, actually? Because that's kind of
5.
important. 5? And does dropping count as a transaction, or is it only picking something up?
Picking up.
Okay,
Picking up.
what I would do is I would drop Milo, drop Rabambi, drop Raikou, drop Lunatone, go down to a 9-mon team, pick up Spiritomb, pick up Delta Roserade if you can, but most importantly, pick up Mega Delta Typhlosion. It won't solve the physical attacking problem, but like, it's a fucking Mega Delta Typhlosion and Moon. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, and like,
Also,
who
maybe,
cares about like the physical offense if you had Chi-Yu, Kyurem, Typhlosion,
Yeah.
and maybe Roserade?
Yeah, it's like, get another physical attacker if you can. I think you do keep the Kartana. I think you keep the Kyurem. I think you could keep the Tentacruel. The Tentacruel could also get turned into something else, though. Is Terra Kartana legal? There's no shot.
No.
No.
Yeah, just like
Yeah.
restructure the team, and I think it'll be fine. Give it like an actual identity, and then I think it'll. I think right now I'd say not making playoffs personally.
I'd almost have it might like.
The offense is still enough. It's still a fucking
fair. Like Kyurem, Chi-Yu, and Kartana is enough.
Like I said about a couple teams at this point. The reason it's not in the might win a game tier is because it legitimately can just win games off of brute force and nothing else.
Yeah. Okay. Next
Let's
team.
move on.
And a quickly look at the type chart. Anything really?
There's the rock weakness. There's the rock weakness.
Who cares?
There's a double time growth. I don't think it's worth talking about. Let's just move on. Honestly, I think in general we should probably just not talk about the type chart unless it's like
fair
5 ground weaknesses or some shit like that. It kind of wastes a lot of time.
This team, I honestly feel sort of similar in that it's not a bad team, but it also feels like, what does it want to do?
Yeah. My immediate phrase was going to be, remember what I said about a lack of identity? What the hell are the Terracaps doing? Like,
I don't mind the Terracaps. Terrapetron.
I do from the angle of that. I could see one or the other. I can't see both. Like you could put Terra on the Hitmontop or the Togekiss. Because, like, I don't believe either of those was that expensive of a Terracap. Maybe not the Togekiss, but on the Hitmontop. Like,
I prefer the other two Terras to Hitmontop.
Really? Okay.
Terra Petron's actually pretty good. And Terra Lantern, I feel like, actually has a lot of potential here.
I think they're both good. I just don't think they're both good together because they're both Terramons that kind of do the exact same thing.
Not really, though.
Because Terra Lantern is actually going to be offensive.
I suppose so, because it's like the Trick Room.
You're going to tail glow with it, yeah.
Yeah, and Terra Petron
I can see it from that angle.
Terra Petron is mostly just like a blanket check to every physical mon ever with her, like basically just a better Terra Avalanche.
Yeah, it is a very obnoxious physical answer. Like Petron and Blissey, I think is actually kind of a cool pairing.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's just like, honestly, I really just don't have very much to say about this team because I don't think there is very much to this team. Like, aside from me personally not liking the Terracaps, like, I don't think they're bad. It's just not my personal cup of tea. It's just like...
The main problem for me is, like, once again, the lack of immediate offensive pressure, like, can be... I know, Haxorus can obviously be a great offense, but it usually prefers to set up.
I would disagree. I would absolutely disagree. Setup Haxorus is fantastic, but Haxorus on its own, I think, is unironically one of the best deltas in terms of just fucking breaking something. You put on a Choice Band, you have a 120 base power stab move of a very good offensive type with 147 base attack.
Yeah, never mind.
And also
I take it back.
Abilities for it in the game. I do agree that Haxorus should not be the only immediate offense.
Yeah.
Megatons Pidge is actually decent immediate offense too. Those Dracos actually do.
Mega Pidgeot's kind of underrated, I think.
Yeah,
they
I
actually do
don't
damage.
think. I feel like there's got to be better Mega options here, but like I wouldn't be mad if they kept it as long as they like rescaled the rest of the team a little bit, maybe.
Like the bottom 3 or 4 feels like kind of weird. Like all of them are like on paper solid mons, but it's still.
Why are they all on the same team?
Yeah, I almost don't know how to explain it. It just feels kind of off.
It's like I've said, it's just kind of hard to talk about this team in general. Like,
yeah,
it's just a bunch of mons slapped on a team together.
Yeah,
I can't even say that it was done to check boxes because I don't even know what boxes this really checks. Because there's a lot of important types here that are kind of undrafted. There's the steel type is not what you typically want for a solo steel. There's the ground type. Like, actually, no, Deltamuck's a pretty good solo ground. But like
the water.
But like,
Haxorus likes to be paired with either a water and or a steel type.
Yeah, it being the only water and steel.
One of the main things that stands out to me is just like, it's like I'll think of a type, right? And it'll be like, I'll be about to say like, oh, well, where's this type? And it's like, no, that type is there. It's just my brain doesn't register it as that because the mon on the team feels so purposeless. Like I was about to say, okay, well, where's the fairy? There's a Togekiss, but like, the Togekiss, like this team struggles to pick what 6 it wants to bring. I think.
Yeah.
The positive can be that like Petron can kind of like blanket check any physical mon, and same with Blissey for special.
Blissey for special.
Although
I think what I would do with this team is like I would keep the top 3. I would keep the Blissey. Oh, 1 second.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree either, but I also just I kind of agree that it's not amazing, but it's still like only like fine.
It's like I wouldn't call it bad. Honestly, this is a really backhanded compliment. But the fact that it doesn't know what the hell it's doing means that the opponent doesn't know what the fuck it's doing either.
True.
Your opponent is going to have just as hard of a time prepping as you are. I intend that to be just as backhanded as it sounds. Oh, wait a minute. Look at that ice weakness.
Yeah,
look at that ice matchup. Oh my god, that is bad.
What is their actual ice? It's
Lantern.
It's Haxorus and Delta Lantern.
Oh, the Lantern, yeah.
It kind of goes back to my point of like name an ice type that can break Petra and Blissey with the right Terra. Like
Chien-Pao.
It cannot break Terra Steel or Terra Fighting Petra.
Every single good physically offensive ice type learns Swords Dance, and this team doesn't really have a good way of punishing Swords Dance aside from just
Petra does foul play.
Punch.
I guess some of the ice types are also dark types. So it's
the 3 that I just mentioned all resist foul play.
Like, Terra Blast Fighting Petra, Terra Fighting Petra. But I definitely
but then it isn't retaining the uniquely good defensive typing. Like,
yeah, but I still agree.
It's a very unique opportunity that Gengar never did to capitalize on the cool defensive typing.
Yeah. But either way, I'd not put in could make. I put in not make. Like the team itself.
I'm gonna be real. I agree that it's not making playoffs, but the design of it makes me want to say it's going to hell. But like, I think not making playoffs is where it belongs. It's not going to hell because of the bad team. It's going to hell because of the lack of thought put into it. But yeah, put it in not making playoffs. That's where it actually belongs.
Okay. Well, there might be a thought, but we just don't know it.
I have no fucking clue what that team's doing. I don't see the vision.
Next team. Let's move on.
Whoever drafted it, if you know what you're doing with this team, if you have a plan, I respect it genuinely because you are operating like on a higher plane of existence than the rest of us.
Okay.
The Trick Room team that isn't a Trick Room team.
I like the top 8, actually. I think that's like on paper kind of good. I'm sure in execution it's gonna have a ton of problems, namely the lack of any like really great defensive integrity. But
yeah, my problem here is Mew is kind of forced. This is a team that is kind of forced into doing with the thing of the Mew you don't want. You don't want Mew forced into like Mew's almost the only reliable hazard mon, and also like the only reliable removal. You don't want
agree with
Mew
that.
doing either of those things. You want Mew to be
Yeah.
able to like flex its offensive potential while also going defensive if necessary. This team doesn't generally do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I agree with that. It's like it's scary offensively, but I don't think it's much else other than that because like this I think this has the opposite problem of some of the other Webs teams that have been drafted of that a lot of the best offensive mons here are kind of
They're
both.
too slow.
You don't have a good mon for really abusing the Webs here. I don't
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
It's like the ones that are slow offensive are too slow.
Bolts?
The ones that are fast are already fast enough, with like I guess the exception of maybe Landorus. Landorus does kind of appreciate Sticky Web, but I think Landorus is like the only mon because
The
that's
problem
not
with
an offensive
Lando
quality.
is also like Lando's best checks are flying types.
Yeah.
I mean,
Usually.
there's a Raging Bolt. There's a Raging Bolt.
Yeah.
Like I
But
think.
yeah,
I'm
but
just
like-
like this.
Oh, you're talking
for-
about from the Sticky Web angle. Fair
the
enough.
web angle, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair. I think it's alright.
Yeah,
It's
like there's no
It's
doubt
alright.
the offensive output of like top 6 minus Mew, if like we think of Mew like Hazardmon, is undoubtedly insane. Like no, like Landorus, Blacephalon,
Also kind
Bolt,
of-
Zoroark are all like amazing
I-
special breakers, and Galork isn't a very good offensive breaker. But the problem is like you don't have anything to fall back on, basically.
Something I will point out is that I love that the ground resist is a thwacky grassy terrain. I'm not even joking.
That and Landorus, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have a Landorus and you have an Araquanid that's not going to resist ground anymore because it's going to Terra out of being a bone type.
Yeah, it's gonna
Yeah.
Terra Water, yeah.
Yeah, that
we obviously
Thwacky's going
have
to
to-
come
yeah.
more than you want it to.
We also do have to address the Sylvalai. I don't know how I feel about Terra Sylvalai. Like,
I feel like it's counterintuitive.
It's
yeah, like I guess
But at
it
the
can
same
be like,
time-
oh, I mean, it can be like you initially wanted, like, just say like a water type, but if they bring an electric, you can like Terra into grass.
I think
But
the way that I'll put the Sylvali is like this. Because looking at the structure of this team, I think it's pretty clear that the Araquanid's the primary Terramon. At least that's how I feel about it. And I feel like the reason that the Sylvali is the Terramon is because everything above it is banned from Terra, and
can
everything below
Galurk
it
not
is
Terra?
not worth
Is-
putting Terra on.
is Galurk Terra banned?
I
Yes.
think it's allowed. Oh, is it banned?
No, I have it. I'm fairly certain it's banned. If it wasn't banned,
it's
I
not
would have
Terra
made it by Terramon.
It's 14 with Terra.
Oh, it's 14 with Terra? Oh, okay. Then I
It's
should
fine
put
with
fuck
Terra.
that.
It might be too expensive.
Drop War Turtle and make Golurk Terra.
Yeah, do that. Actually, no. Don't drop the War Turtle. Drop the Delta Lantern.
Okay, yeah, either is fine.
But
One of
you
them.
don't want to lose your only other like removal option that might.
I mean,
come
there's
to a
Sylvalai
game.
also, technically.
Sylvali is
Does that
actually-
Sylvali ever want to run defog?
I
Well,
also
that's
just
what Steel
noticed
does.
the only Lampert is the only fairy type.
Oh yeah.
The
Well,
dragon
Sylvali.
resist is Golurk. And
Yeah, from the Dragon
technically,
Resist angle, that is a problem.
and
Araquanid
I
can
guess
like kind of.
Sylvalai, but
Araquanid can kind of neutral bulk some dragon types, but not a lot. I
especially
honestly just don't want to talk about this team very much anymore, to be honest with you.
yeah,
The combination of Sylvali and Mew, I feel like, is always really weird because both of them are mons that you kind of want to like build as if they're not on the team. But I feel like this team built assuming both of them were on the team, and it just is awkward.
I think
Yeah.
this is another team that could fix its problems relatively easily with just a few
Yeah.
transactions. But unlike the other ones with that, I don't know what specific suggestions I would make.
yeah,
We talked about the ground issue. I don't think
Yeah,
there's
we
many other specific types.
the dragon issue, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. All right.
I think we
let's-
just put this in not
let's
making
do it.
playoffs and move on, personally.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right, next up, because I only have a little bit longer. Okay, fish sticks.
You like fish
I need to look at
sticks?
this- I need to look at this actually, because I'm
I see a fish
realizing.
door stick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm realizing this team, like, when I first looked at this in the just like the slideshow, I feel like I looked at it differently than it actually is, if that makes any sense. Because like I think S is right. I think they did kind of draft like Chateau was legal.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan
I
of
feel
the
like
Psycho
even
Power.
with Shedtail being banned, I don't hate this team.
My main thought here is, to an extent, you have Spider Rush Golden Go, but not that much that can like take
Abuse it.
advantage of like the hazards.
It's
I
like
disagree for
it's
one
like
reason in
Zerg Tree.
particular. I disagree for one reason in particular, and that is congratulations. You are the one person who drafted a team with Sticky Web that actually has like at least one good Sticky Web abuser.
That's fair.
Because
Like
I would
it's
actually also count Golden Go for that, because while it's not going to be every
Yeah.
week, Golden Go with special attack or like a plot Golden Go with Sticky Web up, that can be scary.
that's
Sure.
fair. Like it's not the. I mean, the thing is, like, because it's you want to stop block default, you usually want it bulky to be able to stick around. But I definitely agree. Golden Go can be a very scary mon if it wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Main part for me is that, like, because you went Spider Ghost Golden Go like round 1 and 2, you didn't get any like very scary high tier offensive mons aside from like maybe Mega Delta
Make
Bishop.
it the Bisharp is
Yeah.
like the main one. Don't underestimate Ogrepon, even without Terra. Ogrepon
Yeah.
is not scary. The only real problem I think with the Ogrepon is that it's it can't hold boots, it's rocks weak, and the removal on this team isn't amazing. It's kind of limited to the Cyclizar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like the Bisharp is never running defog. I think Shift Tree learns defog, but I'm real. I don't.
Yeah,
even,
it does.
like,
But I don't
think they're ever
know
great at
why
Shift
it's
Tree
here.
game.
I don't know why it's here.
It's
Yeah,
vibing.
they probably just had points left over, but I feel like you could.
Yeah,
do better
never mind.
things at
I mean,
this point.
if it's like a 1 or 2 pointer, I definitely don't mind it. I just
There
don't know.
is also one thing I want to comment on. Terra Circuitry. I am very split on Terra Circuitry because I think Terra Electric Circuitry is fucking terrifying.
Yes.
However, Circuitry itself doesn't have Terra Blast,
Yep.
which is really important to keep in mind. It means its only real coverage option is I think it's like Terra Grass Grass Knot is like the main one that it has.
Energy Ball,
Energy Ball
Energy
and
Ball and
Glee.
Glee.
Energy Ball. Okay, Energy Ball's a little more reliable. So like the Terra Grass option is still good. Like I feel like the Terra I don't know if Miss Magus is Terra legal, admittedly.
I don't think it is.
Probably not. I would imagine it isn't, just given the stats read. I actually do like the
it's
Terra
Terra
Circuitry overall.
It's Terra Band.
I think
Which
what I
one?
don't like is I like the Terra Circuitry. I think I like it in the end, but like you do have to keep in mind that I feel like this is another team where it's a symptom of like they didn't I feel like it wasn't drafted with Terra abusers in mind necessarily.
Yeah.
Because like on Terra
Yeah.
Circuitry, the Terra is a bonus. It's not what you draft them on for. And honestly, I think Terra Quagsire is just straight up a bad Terra pick. Quagsire does not want to lose its typing.
Yeah, it's a little awkward.
It's generally not great, but it can, like, in some specific scenario.
It can be useful, but I think what I would do personally is, because Quagsire is already not coming very often, and I doubt that Terra Quagsire specifically is probably going to come more often. I think it would be a decent decision to move the Terra to the Graveler, because I think that would make the Graveler more relevant as a low tier.
Yeah. I also feel like Quagsire in general is kind of weird here. Like,
it's your only bulky border, which is not very good.
I don't hate it, and like it can fulfill that role, and like having the option of unaware is like never bad.
It's always good.
It almost feels like you could do it like Quagsire's bulk is extremely subpar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
generally. So
especially
like
for insurgent standards, it's like
yeah.
yes,
So,
we all love the meme of Quagsire going where it's needed, but that applies in the ladder, not in draft.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say.
Like in me, I don't hate it. Like it's fine. Like it's not part of the main plan. It's not coming that often. The main game plan is just slap hazards, slap golem, go wild with your offensive balls, and that game plan is pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. I do think that not getting a better water is a mistake, because can you go back just for a second?
Yeah.
Because if you look at the offense, this team really doesn't have a great Scald switch in. The best one is probably Dulcimus Magius or Golden Go. Because Ogreppon's neutral and Rock's weak, it can't really take the hit. Metagross is weak to water. Bisharp can't afford to get burned. Like if you Terra Grass the Circuitry, maybe that could switch to Scald decently. It's just not a team that really loves Scald in general. But honestly, I feel a lot better about this team than I do the last 5 that we looked at.
Oh yeah, I think we should move to where we place it.
Yeah, let's move to where we place it. I don't think any of because the ice this just as an example are
This definitely to me feels like I could make playoffs. Like,
I feel like I want to put it in could make playoffs. I will admit, I don't know if that's just because I feel like there's finally a team that I feel at least slightly positive on.
Yeah,
but I
the
feel like
main
it
part.
belongs to
Yeah,
playoffs.
the main part to me is literally just like compared to some of the others, the game plan is extremely like clear and like
It knows
specific.
what it wants to do. It's going to do
Yeah.
it, and if it pulls it off, it's probably going to win. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Let's move on
Yeah.
to Sceptile.
Yeah,
Because we're running long. We're running short of time. Okay,
Yeah.
Dashing Sceptile.
yeah, best Terror Cap in the game probably. Terror Ledge.
Terror Ledge is
it
definitely
Really?
up there.
Oh yeah,
Really?
or maybe not. It's
Not best.
easily
Not best, but it is excellent.
it easily like